Hey dudes, Silvite Soltis here. It's been a while, huh? Well, I've finally done it. I capped my troll priest over on Mancreek US a few weeks back, dabbled in dungeons, and finally got to enjoy some Molten Core and Onyxia as relevant content. But unfortunately, the grind has meant that I haven't really been making content like I should have been. Sorry for that. But now that things have settled a bit, I thought it might be a good idea to get back into the swing of things. And what better way to resume my content creation than by making a quick snapshot of my classic journey thus far. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy as I recount my adventures in Azeroth over the past 4 months or so. The first day of Classic was amazing. I had only recently started a new job over here in Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia, and since it was 6 a.m. when the game launched, I ended up not being able to play until I got home in the evening. But oh man, once I got home, I logged 3.5 hours straight. Now this might not be much if you compare it to others, but it's what I could manage given my current situation. I got to around level 10 in that first session, and I enjoyed every minute of it. Best of all, I had little to no competition for mobs because of the early morning hours on Mancreek. It was pretty much the best launch I could imagine. Over the next week or so, I leveled slowly, finishing off Durotar on the second day of play and moving on into the Barrens. Somewhere in the third day or so, I knocked out Ragefire Chasm as well, much to the dismay of my wife. You see, I had forgotten just how long Classic Dungeons took, and though I estimated I'd be in there for about 30 to 45 minutes, it ended up being about an hour and a half. It wasn't particularly long or difficult, I just assumed that it would be quicker. Anyway though, I progressed pretty slowly, as you all know. Silvite the Troll Priest hit level 18 or so somewhere in the second week after the game's launch, and I managed to knock out Wailing Caverns shortly after that with a friend of mine. The next few weeks, however, proved to be quite a bit more challenging. Leveling through a mix of the Barrens, Ashenvale, Thousand Needles, and even a bit of Hillsbrad, I came to realize just how annoying this level bracket could be. Quests were sparse, and many of them took me all over the map. Combine this with the fact that I was trying to juggle my new job, my content creation, and my family life, and you can imagine just how frustrating this portion of the leveling process was. To be honest, this portion of the leveling is already quite blurry to me, as I basically just ran all over the world frantically trying to find silk cloth for my tailoring, while also completing whatever quests I could find in the 40 or so minutes I could play each night after my kids slept. One thing that I do clearly remember, however, was my first Scarlet Monastery library run, completed in the early hours of a Sunday morning before my family woke up. I didn't have any idea how long this dungeon would take, only that I really wanted to do it. And so, with my priest at around level 34, I found a group, made my way over to the dungeon, and got ready to clear it. Now this dungeon wasn't particularly challenging, as any of you out there who have run it at this point probably know, but it was epic. And from the final boss, Arcanist Doan, I received 2 items, the Robes of Doan, and, just like my first priest, the Hypnotic Blade. This was definitely one of the finer highlights of my leveling journey. Somewhere in the early 30s, I dabbled a bit in Stranglethorn Vale, everyone's favorite questing zone. Being on a PvE server, though, I can truly say that I enjoyed every minute of my time there. However, around the middle of the level 30s bracket, my quests there were drying up, and I needed to find a new area to quest in. And so, I headed to another level 30 zone, Desolace. Worst idea ever. Back before Classic was out, I dedicated one of my Memories of Vanilla stories to this barren wasteland of a zone, saying how enjoyable I found it back in the day. But my god, this place sucks so bad for Horde. The flight path is all the way to the southern part of the zone, the quests are all over the place, and you don't even have a mount yet to make this even the slightest bit better. I tried really hard to enjoy my time here. I really did. But it just sucked. But wait, there's more. Because I was starting to feel more pressure to game less while at home, I played less for about 2 full weeks in this range. It wasn't until my school went on fall break in mid-October that I was finally able to speed up a bit. At that point, I was around level 37 or so, and I wanted more than anything to hit level 40 and get my shiny Emerald Raptor mount. And so this stretch began. The first day of the break, I managed to hit level 39 by running some of the various wings of Scarlet Monastery and questing in Stranglethorn Vale. It was pretty good, but not enough. The next day, I knocked out Razorfen Downs, hung around killing pirates outside of Booty Bay, and, most importantly, dinged that magical number, level 40. This meant that I could finally run down to Senjin Village and not get my mount because I was about 20 gold short. GG. I was a bit bummed out that I couldn't get my mount as soon as I hit level 40. But since there wasn't much else I could do about it, I just continued questing and selling literally everything that I had acquired. Other than cloth, that is. It was a long and arduous level, but shortly after hitting level 41, I knew I'd have enough. I traveled to Orgrimmar, put some greens and a blue item that I'd looted off some random mob in STV into the auction house, and logged out for the day. The next morning, I was surprised to see that all of my auctions had sold overnight, and so I made that final journey on foot that any classic character has to make, the run to the riding trainer. As you can view here on my channel, I recorded the occasion as I bought the skill, then my Emerald Raptor mount. I was pumped, and even now, this is still one of the best feelings I've experienced in Classic. But that's old news now, isn't it? The rest of my fall break was devoted to getting as far into the 40s as I could. I set an ambitious goal of reaching level 45 by Friday, but by Wednesday, I'd only hit level 41. Needless to say, I didn't achieve this goal with my pace of play. I did, however, get to fully enjoy what is now one of my favorite zones in Classic, Feralas. As a Horde player this time around, I got to experience just how awesome this zone is for leveling. There are loads of quests near Camp Mohache, and tons of ogres with cloth, and beasts to skin. Plus, the entire zone is a vibrant green, my favorite color. Every time I left this zone to quest somewhere else, I found myself longing to come back. I just really enjoyed it. But anyway, other than Feralas, I dabbled a bit in the hinterlands and Tanaris, a zone that I really enjoyed back in the day. The desert scenery was nice, and the quests were plenty, but soon enough my week off was finished and I had to say goodbye to my long WoW sessions at a mere level 44, only slightly over the real halfway point of the leveling process. I made it to level 45 or so by the middle of October, about a week after Dire Maul's release. I managed to run Zul'Farrak around this time as well, knocking out all of the quests that I'd been working on in Tanaris, and then made my way over to the hinterlands for an extended stay. This beautiful forest was serene and great for my level ranged, but to be honest, I don't really remember much about what I did here. I know I killed a bunch of trolls, wolves, and owlkin, but it all just sort of happened. Eventually, I hit level 50, and I began planning for the endgame. I wondered just how early I could start running BRD to get gear and quests knocked out, what gear I could afford in the auction house, and where the heck I could go to quest next. After a while, I decided to go to what is now another of my favorite zones in Classic, Ungoro Crater. I didn't realize this the first time I leveled in vanilla, but Ungoro Crater is absolutely packed with quests. Though there are no humanoids to kill, and thus no cloth for my tailoring, the sheer number of quests that I was able to collect and work on simultaneously made this an absolute must-stop for my leveling adventure. While in this lush, prehistoric jungle, I made friends with a druid who I ran into repeatedly, got killed by a bunch of Silithid while rubbing some lotion on a crystal, and tried to solo Blaze Runner at level 54, only to get absolutely demolished. All in all, it was good times, and I'm actually really looking forward to doing it again with an alt at some point. So the lesson of my leveling journey thus far was this: do Feralas, and Ungoro Crater, no matter what. When I hit level 53, I knew I would be pretty much good to go for most of, if not all of, Blackrock Depths. And since there's a ton of loot in there for priests, I started searching for groups. The first time I ran this dungeon was in early November, and the goal for me was simple: get the Shadowforge key for everyone in the group. Our tank, a warrior, was level 60, so things went really well, to be honest. We made our way through the arena where the Banthok sash dropped, then progressed up towards the statue where one puts the hammer to get the key. Some of my party members had already gotten the hammer from Phineas Darkfire in a previous run, but since a couple of us hadn't, we continued toward him. When we got up to Lord Incendius, we just jumped down thinking it would somehow be a shortcut, instead of making our way through the golem room that we needed to go to anyway. And so after he died, we had to pull every single mob of the golem room in order to run back up to the statue. Still, I needed experience, and so I didn't really complain. I didn't get my senior designer's pantaloons that run, but I did get them in my third run in Blackrock Depths later on that week. For that first run, I was really just satisfied with getting my key, so I logged off that night with a smile on my face, and then I had trouble sleeping because I couldn't stop thinking about WoW. What's often considered to be the longest mile. In mid-November, I only had 5 levels to go to hit that sweet, sweet level 60, and I did everything I could to get ready. As soon as I reached level 55, I picked up my Molten Core Attunement quest, and got my Princess quest chain started, snatching up some nice shoulders in the process. I bought a bunch of raw plus healing gear from the auction house that I ended up not even equipping, because I eventually got better items before I went full holy. And I did quest after quest after quest after quest. Of course, this was aided by the fact that my wife was abroad for work for about 10 days, so there was little to no pressure not to do dungeons during this time. I smashed out dungeon quests, most of the Ani attunement, and the last few levels during this time. But the most badass memory I have was on Thursday, November 21st. I had set up a group for BRD to knock out the Molten Core Attunement, as well as to not kill the princess at the end. Tanks were scarce, so I ended up just taking 4 other level 60s and healing it myself, of course, as a level 57 Shadow Priest. We steamrolled through most of the dungeon with ease, but halfway through the Lyceum at the end, a dreaded timer came up. Server shut down in 15 minutes. All of a sudden, it became a race against the clock. We smashed our way through those dwarf packs, accidentally losing a torch, and messing up that whole bit at the end where you have to light those braziers. Somehow we finished it though, and sped through that last hallway. The big lava guy was easy enough, but with only 8 minutes remaining when we entered the final chamber, we didn't really know if we could make it. Our tank pulled pack after pack, knowing full well that we needed to clear the entire room before engaging the boss. Whenever the DPS started killing the final mob of each pack, I had myself near the next group and was spamming my Morning Glory do icon. With 1 minute 15 seconds left on the clock, the final mob fell, and I shot my wand at the Emperor of the Dark Iron Dwarves. Down he went. I somehow reminded everyone throughout that process not to kill the princess, hoping that we'd somehow make it. Luckily, we did. The loot window popped up, caster robes that I needed while running frantically over to the Princess of Ironforge, with less than 30 seconds left before the server shut off. I clicked through the dialogue, thanking God that there was no wait for me to say a million things before you can accept the next part shenanigans like some quests have. And then, just as I hopped off the throne and said thanks to my group, I got disconnected. Yeah, that was probably the most epic moment I've had in Classic so far. Not gonna lie. I reached level 60 on November 23rd, exactly 15 years after the game initially launched. And for good measure, I made sure to cap in exactly the same place, with exactly the same type of mob that had given me that final yellow swirly around my character 13 years ago. You know, those caster guys in the noxious glade of the Eastern Plaguelands. And, of course, I recorded that event and uploaded it here on YouTube right away as well. Though I was excited to finally hit the level cap, I also realized that the game was really just beginning for me here. I'd managed to get attuned to Molten Core, and I'd recently swapped guilds to a newly formed guild that had better raid times for my unique geographical and family situation. But I still needed to get gear that wasn't terrible, finish my Onyxia attunement, and actually start raiding. Luckily, I managed to do all of those things within 1 week of hitting the cap. And though I'd like to be able to say that I can raid regularly and get geared to the tits, I'm not sure what my future in the game looks like. Still, it was a hell of a journey, and I'm hoping to continue raiding Molten Core and Onyxia for months to come. But stories like that will have to wait for another day. I hope you enjoyed my long, adventurous tale of my priest's journey to level 60. There are, obviously, many more things that happened along the way, at 60, and things that are still to come. But I feel I've included the most enjoyable and important memories here. I'd like to thank everyone who has been supportive in my journey to 60, including, of course, my wife, who dealt with all of my gaming, and my YouTube subscribers here, who have been left without regular content for quite a few months now, while I've been playing a 15-year-old video game. If you liked this story, remember to subscribe and check back later in case there are more stories in the future, as well as new guides and other content that is to be released. Follow me on Facebook and Twitter for updates, and consider checking out my written content over on Blogspot as well. But anyway, that's all I've got for today. Thanks again for watching, and as always, take it easy, guys.